Okay, in this video we're going to look at using Vlookup with a drop-down menu and this graph that we have here. To begin with, these are potential NFL running backs from this year's combine, and this is the 40-speed event. And what I've got here is a drop-down that allows me to pick events, and it will update my graph without me having to have multiple graphs or go to any other page. And that's what we're looking at creating today, is a simple dashboard with this graph. So here's how we did this. First thing we did is create a table. Now when you look at this table, you'll notice column A is our event, and then along the top are our running backs with the different times, seconds, inches, whatever the measurement was on that event. And then the last one, of course, is the measurements. Now one of the key points whenever creating our tables, we want to go to design and we want to name that table. So we can call this one combine. So that's the first step. The second step is to create this drop-down menu that we have here. So to do that, we'll go to this drop-down page. A1 will say choose an event. We'll come here to A2 and we're going to create our drop-down. So first thing we want to do is go to data. Under data, we're going to go to where it says data validation and click on the drop-down and choose validation. And for validation criteria, right now it says allow any value. We're going to choose a list, and then our source for our list, we'll go back to table, will be the events listed in column A. So you can see here table, and we'll click OK. And now here's our different events. Now one of the things we want to do over here is we want to come over here, we want to name our drop down. And we'll call this event 2 because the first one in the example is just event. So now there's our drop down. So that is step number 2. Now step number 3 is creating the lookup to generate our graph. So we're going to go to graph and we'll come over here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to type in event here to keep ourselves where we want. And then for our event we're going to say equals. We're going to come back to the drop down and choose that and hit enter. So now if I change my drop down to 40 speed, and I come over here to graph, it tells me 40 speed. So that right there is going to be our title of our graph. So the next thing we need are the names of our running backs. So we're just going to go to data and we'll just take and copy these names. So here's our event, here's our athletes. So the next step then is to get our data. So here's how our formula works. We're going to say equals if. Now, so if event 2, and we're going to say if event 2 is equal to combine, and then for combine we'll say headers. So if event 2 equals combine headers, and then for headers we need to have event, close our brackets, then we'll do our Vlookup. So we're going to say, so Vlookup, now what we want here is we want event 2, then we'll comma combine, so event 2 combine, and we'll have column 2, and then we're going to use false because we want an exact match. And we'll close those parentheses. So there's Todd Gurley's 4.4540 time. Now to get this to the rest of them, we can just drag these down and then we can change the column. 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So now, as we change our drop down, which we can go over here and do, say 3-cone drill. So 3-cone drill pops up, and here are the measurements. Now the last thing we want to do is we're going to come here, we're going to just drag this up, and we're going to make this 9. because that's going to tell us our measurement. So now our last step is to go over here and to create our graph. So we're going to insert, we'll choose a bar graph, make it a little larger. Now we're going to select our data. So our data is here. We want this to equal our graph event title. So when we change here, it changes that. Now the other thing we can do is come into our graph, we can change the color of it, we can make it orange. We can also change the layout. So like if I look at this one here, and the reason I chose this one is because you'll notice now my 40 speed down here, my series, it tells me what my measurement is for each of those running backs. So when I go to 40, if I go to shuttle run, our shuttle run is in seconds. Here's their times. I can see this here. I can also go in, vertical jump is now in inches. So that allows us to change, and we can go in to our graph and we can pretty it up, make this bold, we can make the names bold. So we can make changes here. But that's how you make that VLOOKUP.